You're tuning into the Careering with Cameron podcast, your safe place for asking all the dumb questions about finding a job. Welcome back, everybody. It's Kevin Cameron with Careering with Cameron. This is episode 18, and we're talking about the great follow-up. I'm getting a lot of questions post-interview with clients I'm working with who have gone on wonderful interviews, exciting connecting with clients or future employers, and coming back to me and saying like, okay, what's the follow-up protocol? The follow-up protocols vary quite a bit based on what's happened in the interview and leading up to that interview. So I'm going to give you the rough overview of follow-up, but you may have a specific situation that's different. So please reach out if that is the case, or feel free to note that on the podcast notes as well to submit. So here's the situation. With follow-up, there's a few things that are absolutely critical. Ideally, we're talking about follow-up from an interview, either in person or online. And the first piece of advice is you want to be able to pull back some information from your interview that's specific to you and the conversation you had with that person or people. So if there was a funny joke that was said, if there was something specific maybe about a school you attended that somebody else attended, you grew up in the same area, whatever it may be that can make you different from everybody else, you want to call out. I should probably say different in a positive way, but I think we know that. So making sure that different component is a better way for them to remember who you are. If they are conducting 5 interviews, let's say on a Friday, it may be a challenge to keep everybody straight and not have people run together in their minds. So we want this as your reminder of what an awesome fit you are for the organization, and also a reminder of all of the skills that you bring to the picture and how well you connected with the team. This is the number one piece. You get to your car or you press end call. The first thing I want you to do is write down the specific points that you had that made the conversation different or memorable for them. Write those down, and also write down all of the pain points that hopefully they shared with you. So in the interview, and if you listen to a previous podcast on interviewing, one of the things we drive at is to ask the question, what is the biggest challenge with this role? That's their pain points. We want to make sure you have those in front of you so that you don't forget them. And you want to make sure that you can address them because that's why they're hiring. So making sure that you jot down quickly the pain points, things that were memorable, and also making sure that the pain points that are shared, you can allocate back to the right person if you met with a team, right? If you met with multiple people at once. So making sure that that is all squared away. If you get into a back-to-back interview session, sometimes you have space in between to take some quick notes. Sometimes you don't, and you're going to have to kind of fall back on your memory. If you have a couple minutes in between, definitely write them down. If you are advanced at this and you bring questions with you about the interview and about the organization that you're working off to make sure that you have a complete picture of what this role looks like, then certainly jotting down the pain points should already be squared away for you. You should already have those with you. It should already be in front of you, as well as the information around what made this interview stick out for both parties. Next piece, we have to decide if we're going to send an email or an in-person thank you note. In-person thank you note is a fantastic way to follow up. I can tell you that I have every thank you note that's ever been sent to me. Why is that? Because I'm weird, but also because I find that the thank you note took a lot more time to write than an actual email in my mind. And also, we're kind of at a point in time where a handwritten thank you note is pretty nice. It took some effort. They went out and actually bought a card and a note and threw it in the mail and sent it, or they brought it and dropped it off at the front desk to make sure that I received it on time. But I do save them. I think they're neat. It's fun to kind of go back every once in a while and reach out to folks that I haven't talked to in a while and see how they're doing. But I do save them. A heck of a lot easier to remember those conversations than trying to read an email that somebody has sent saying thank you. So I do defer to the handwritten thank you note if you have the capability and time to make that happen. And what I mean by that is if you can drop a note for them at the front desk and you're sure they're going to get it within 24 hours, great. If you know that this is a much longer term hire where you have a couple days, then certainly you can do that. But for the most part, most hiring today, and I'm saying hiring for a position, I'm not saying pipeline identification, I'm not saying informal interview where they're talking to you about the possibility of a role. Those obviously you can work with in sending a handwritten note, not a problem. If it's a job that's posted and you've applied to it, chances are they're moving quickly. So that unfortunately would fall back to an email, making sure that you're sending that email within 24 hours, but not 5 minutes after you leave the building. Also, not at 1 o'clock in the morning. So think about what it looks like to the reader when they receive that thank you note at 1 o'clock in the morning or a millisecond after you leave the building. Give it a little bit of time for you to think about. Be thoughtful in terms of the note you're writing, and then also sharing that back to them as a note. The last piece really is the timing of it. And we covered on that quite a bit, but it's really important that if they're moving quickly, you're moving quickly. So 24 hours is the professional courtesy to respond to pretty much any email, or at least to respond back with like, I see this, I'll be back in touch with you. In the case of thank you notes, 24 hours is the deal. So there's a couple components in terms of the actual thank you note that you need to work on. One, thank you for your time is beaten to death. Thank you for your time is really something that's like to whom it may concern. It's pretty vanilla. It's not doing much for anybody. Try to find some different verbiage around there. Appreciate the opportunity to meet with you. Things like that would be better. But thank you for your time feels like it may have been stamped on the paper that you're using before you ever typed a letter. It's just way too overdone. So try something different, first of all. Second, we want to make sure that in your structure of your email, you do have that moment or joke or something that makes it different as your specific like reminder of who I am. So if something happened there, a bug crawled across the floor, whatever it may be, maybe not the bug crawling across the floor, but something that was a connector, we'll call it, for you in the interview would be great. And then the next piece would be providing a solution for them. So I like to say, take the pain points that they gave you and come back to them and say, I've been thinking quite a bit about this, and I wanted to share this as additional thought and or resource. If you can find a resource that would help them with that problem, whether you think they've seen it or not, please share that with them. Also, if you have an idea that might help them, share that as well. Don't give them a project plan, just sharing an idea that you think may help based on what you've thought of after you've left the meeting. For our students that are listening to the podcast, that may be something that you learned in a class or a project that you worked on. So you are not excluded from sharing that information with them. The next piece is talking about the culture and or fit. So making sure that you are solidifying to them, you enjoyed meeting with that person or the team and enjoyed the conversation with them and learning more about the organization, specifically something that you can call out that they seemed more excited about and how you have spent some time also researching that and will continue to. And so I think that that's a good place to share, and you can connect that back also to that bridge that you created around their pain point, right? So those are pieces that you want to be able to fit together. Now, this is typically where we have questions. So we're post 24 hours. You've shared a thank you note. You've maybe sent some resources with your thank you note, and crickets. Nothing's happening. You haven't heard anything. It's day 2. You're losing your mind that you haven't heard anything. Sometimes you will get a response back saying they enjoyed meeting with you as well. That's great. That's a good sign. It doesn't mean that there's an offer attached to it. Don't look for an attachment to the email. It doesn't necessarily mean that. What it means is that they want to keep the door open. The lines of communication certainly are there, and they valued that connection with you enough and are confident, frankly, enough in their hiring that they're like, yeah, I'd love to be in touch with you, and we'll see where this goes. That's a good sign. The other piece that people tend to get back is, can you tell me a little bit more about something specific? So maybe they have an additional question that popped up. Maybe it's something that you called out in your thank you note, but you may get that back. Again, you can also get full out crickets, and crickets can go on for a week. Keep in mind that as organizations are hiring, they're looking at a lot of different profiles, a lot of data. This is probably not the only job they're hiring for. There's a lot going on. I understand that the ghosting can be frustrating. So my encouragement to you is this: make it as easy as possible for them to follow up with you. In that thank you note, you should have included name, obviously, phone number. You can certainly add email in there if you'd like. If it's over email, obviously they probably have it. But if it's a handwritten note, maybe include your email so that they can see that quickly and write back to you. If they are weird like me and they're keeping the thank you note, it's always there. But you want to make sure that it's very, very easy for them to get in touch with you. The next piece of that really is, when can you reach back out to them? So I would tell you, if it's a consulting engagement, not full-time direct hire, consulting, so temporary, you can reach back within 2 days, maximum. Consulting moves very, very quickly. So if you are talking to somebody about a temporary opportunity or a consulting opportunity, I want you following up with them within 2 days. If this is a position that is a full-time direct hire where you're getting benefits from that organization, then within a week, absolutely. If you send a thank you note on Monday and you haven't heard anything Friday, 100% reach back out to them. And the question then is, how do you reach back out to them without sounding like, I called you and you never called me back? What's going on? So the way to address that piece is to reach back out either with something newsworthy, something positive, newsworthy, please, but something newsworthy where you can share it with them that you found some article because you were researching more about the organization and you weren't sure if they saw this article or not, but you thought it might be something that's interesting to them. Maybe it's something that's research-based. Maybe it's something that's AI-based because there's plenty of AI work out there. But maybe that's the topic that you use to find something to send to them. So you're not just pinging them to say, hey, how come this isn't moving along? What's going on? You're saying, hey, I'm still thinking about this position and I'm acting as if I'm already there because I'm researching solutions. Let's talk. So that's a much better way to go about it. In that follow-up, and by the way, the follow-up can certainly be email, not a handwritten letter. A handwritten follow-up letter would also be kind of weird. So let's go email. Can it be LinkedIn? I get this question quite a bit. If you don't have the person's email, then you're going to be in a conundrum because A, you probably have a recruiter's email, and you can certainly send the note to the recruiter to forward to the hiring manager. I'm sure that they will. Or you can go through LinkedIn. If you go through LinkedIn, they may or may not see it. Not everybody spends all day on LinkedIn. There are folks who go on LinkedIn once a month. So I wouldn't count on that as the place that things are going to land in this process. But if it's the only option that you have, then it's the only option that you have. If you have a person's email there, you may be able to back into that person's email. So you may be able to create it based on what the person's email is that you have. Or if you are working at this and networking and you have your stars, and if you don't know what those are, you have a podcast to listen to earlier. But if you're working on networking with this organization, you should have somebody else there that can probably tell you the person's email, and then you can forward that along to them. So that's the secret sauce to this whole thing, having connections where you can send your thank you note as a follow-up. When you send that follow-up thank you note, again, make it easy to contact you. Also, the follow-up to it is you haven't heard from them in a week. You're just following up. You have a resource that you're sharing with them. The resource is something you've researched, so it helps to show you're adding value already. The last piece of this is when do you continue to follow up? So let's say it's a week, you sent your follow-up. Do you follow up again the following week? If you follow up every 2 days, that's going to be a lot. Let's not do that. Typically, after a week with something sent that's an interesting article or piece of news, you'll get some response. If you don't get any response, then it's probably time to circle back to maybe the recruiter as well and ask what's happening. So in the situation where you're reaching back out to a recruiter, you want to make sure that the recruiter understands that you are excited about the opportunity and you are interviewing for a new role. You don't have to tell them where. In fact, I prefer you don't tell them where. Just make sure that they're aware that you are interviewing, because ideally you're looking at more than one position at a time, or at least you're submitting your information to more than one position at a time. But your goal is to find a job. So it's okay for them to know that. Also make sure that you ask them, would there be a better time for me to follow up to see what's happening? What do you think the timeline is for this position? So this is all based on call/email with a recruiter. Take this out. That part's terrible. I don't like any of that. If you're following up with a recruiter, you want to be able to reach out to them and let them know that you're still interested in the position and you're hoping for an idea of what the timeline looks like for next steps. That's pretty much as far as you can go. If you would like to, and I do encourage you to do this, you can tell that recruiter that you are actively networking. And if there are other opportunities that they're looking for help with, or you can make recommendations from your circle, you'd be happy to do that, which kind of befriends you with that recruiter. But that's really about as far as you can go with it. So step 1, you go back to the hiring manager, do the thank you note within 24 hours. Step 2, you can still follow up with that hiring manager by somehow, some way, getting a hold of their email address. Worst case scenario, you are using LinkedIn to reach out to them, but somehow, some way, get them a follow-up message. Step 3 in this would be still nothing. You can go to the recruiter and let them know that you're following up and curious about the timeline for this role and see if they have an update. A lot of times they will have an update sooner. It is imperative that you make it as easy as possible for that recruiter to reach out to you. I would even take it to the point where I would say in your thank you or in your follow-up, your phone number, I would put in there they can text you back. It's as easy as possible for them to reach back out. Those are the pieces that I would say to do. The most important piece for this whole process is, so we're at the point with the interview where you've gone the interview, you had a good session, you feel good about the job, you're interested in it, you're hoping they're interested in you. And so the next piece is you're doing the follow-up. Now, this is going to go one of two ways. One, they're going to say, come back for another interview. Great, you're moving forward. The other way is they're going to say, really sorry. We interviewed quite a few people. We interviewed 5 people. We interviewed 2 people, whatever it may be. And we will not be moving forward with you. We have a candidate that we feel is stronger based on this role and their background. That sucks. But it's not the end. Making sure you are a gracious, second place finisher is really important. So I can't tell you how many placements I've made in my life, but I can tell you that many, many, many of them have involved the second place finisher at some point either getting a job with the same organization or even the same job because the first offer doesn't work out. Or I'm much more interested in calling up a friend and saying, hey, we interviewed this person. We ended up not hiring them, but they're fantastic. You should talk to them if you have that job open. Or another hiring manager in the business. So keep in mind how you handle that conversation, which again, it does suck. How you handle that conversation is important if you want them to think of you as someone that they can trust and bring forward in their process. That's really, really critical. So that's part of your follow-up is making sure they know, I'm disappointed, but if there are other opportunities that come along, I would still love to be considered for those roles. And if there's stay in touch with you, please let me know what would be the easiest for you in order for me to reach out every once in a while and see what types of roles you're working on. That is certainly a nice way to continue that conversation. I would also say continuing that conversation with the hiring manager will set you apart. So even if the recruiter calls you and says, we're no longer considering you for this role, thanks so much, we're going to fill it with somebody else, and best of luck to you. Have the conversation in terms of the recruiter that you're interested, but then also circle back to the hiring manager and say, I really appreciated learning more about the organization. You have a wonderful team. I'm disappointed that I'm not going to be selected for this role, but I feel strongly enough about it that if there is another opportunity that comes along, I would love for you to reach out and let me know so that I could submit my background for that role. That's a huge separator because A, it makes the process so much easier for the hiring manager who may be looking at, oh, I have to start another search now. And we're going to have to go through weeks and weeks of screening applicants and whatnot. They're still going to have to probably talk to a few, but they won't have to talk to a few where they don't have a good idea of who's available. They know you're available. So that's a great way to create that kind of side door to get into the organization. That's an important piece. Couple things we want to make sure that we're including as takeaways for your thank you note. Make sure it's personalized. If you are meeting with a team of 5 people, ideally, an individual thank you note for each person is a differentiator because they will absolutely send their thank you notes back and forth to each other to compare. Second, if you have a team and you don't have any emails and they're moving very quickly, it might be easier, I will say, to send one thank you note. But the preference is individualized and personalized thank you notes. Proofread that letter 105 times before you send it out. It needs to be proofread enough that you're sure there are no typos. I have seen thank you notes with the wrong company. I have seen thank you notes with the wrong name. In my case, I have 2 first names. So I've absolutely received messages to Cameron instead of Kevin. This happens. It shouldn't. Please make sure that you're proofreading who it's going to. Make sure that you're proofreading the body of the message and make sure that your contact information is also proofread. Next, as you're working through this process, make sure that you are maintaining a professional. Make sure that this is a peer-to-peer exchange. It is not a conversation where they are more professional than you are. You want to meet them at their professionalism. So that's really important. You want to maintain equality with them. These are all things that hopefully are helpful to you as you're going through the follow-up phase. Getting feedback can be a challenge. It absolutely is. I can tell you that oftentimes recruiters do get poked back that they don't get feedback fast enough. I can also tell you that there are situations that occur which make it more challenging for the recruiter to give feedback. It's not an excuse. I've been in those situations as a recruiter. They happen. So maintain professionalism. You don't know what's happening on the other side of the fence until you know. And it could be something as fantastic as they're going to rescope the job and bring you in for it. It could be something that's as not fantastic as there's an internal person who put their hand up and they want the job now. So all the candidates are out, but really be gracious in receiving feedback. I would definitely at that point of you're not getting the position. If you get to that point of you're not getting the position, I would definitely ask the hiring manager if they have any feedback for you in terms of things you could work on to be a better applicant for this role in the future. They probably will have something to give you. It's rare there's nothing. Listen to that feedback. And then I would also make sure that when you do listen to that feedback, I would ask some folks around you who know you what their thoughts are. and make sure that feedback is something that you can focus on to make an improvement on and ideally work on. But if it's something that catches you off guard and you're not aware of it, then you want some other folks' input in terms of what you're hearing. So obviously a coach comes in very handy with that, but that's the bottom line. So I hope you've enjoyed this session on follow-up. This is episode 18. I hope you've enjoyed this session. If you feel as though it has added some value to your job search or your future job search, please give us 5 stars. Please make sure you share it with at least 2 people who are in the interview process right now. Let them know to follow us on Careering with Cameron on any of the platforms that you listen to your podcast. And please reach out if there's any topics you need some help on that you'd love for us to cover in some of our future shows. Thank you so much. Stay in the loop at careeringwithcameron.com/talent connect or check out our website, www.talent-connect.net.